Hello everybody, what a magnificent day I had yesterday. It was the presentation of Brave New World in Spain, and you had Pochettino and his family and friends and his staff. They were all present, not just them actually. Legend Ivan de la Peña was there. Calzón, the delegate, there's not such a figure in English football, but in Spanish is one of the key members of the club or the first team, the guy who hands over the lines up, the one who's always there. Calzón was the legendary delegate of Espanyol, who of course is a close friend of Pochettino. We had the consul and the ambassador of Argentina, and somebody counted about 19 cameras. It was just a great day, and of course it wasn't all planned 24 hours before it happened. It wasn't just planned because Zinedine Zidane decided to resign, and of course Pochettino straight away became the number one candidate. This had been planned for a long way, and I must apologize to some of the media that were there, because we actually gave priority to those that had booked a slot before the Zidane news broke, which meant that they were coming because of the book and wanted to talk to Pochettino about the book. What we did was like an hour of interviews, and then after he dealt with Dad, and he spoke from AS to Radio Marca to Ara. Ara was interesting because the interview was done by Natalia, who was a former player of his, a female player who's now a journalist and a coach as well. And there was an interesting chat. It's in Catalan, it's in newspaper Ara. And then we chatted after some introductions from Contra, the publishers, and the lovely words from the consul and the ambassador of Argentina. We spoke. I put in my timeline. Somebody filmed the whole thing. In fact, I think Marca had a live streaming of the event, which is amazing. And yes, the whole video and audio of it, it's out there in my timeline, but it's in Spanish. And it was a lovely chat, and it gave you a hindsight into what he's like, and an insight into his way of thinking and the way he talks to people. I always say that the fact that his English is a little bit not perfect stops the English audience see more of what he's like. Obviously, players have got the opportunity to have more time for him, so he can develop whatever he wants to say in more time. He doesn't have to rush it like in press conferences or in public events. But for those that speak Spanish, this will be a little bit of a window into what he's like. I think he's very proud of the project, of what we built together, of this book that is so different, because as for those of you that have read it, you know what it's like. For those of you that haven't, it's a diary of a season, a diary with his words, but they're not all his words. They are words from his assistants, from players, from family as well, put through as if they were his words. A biography in the first person is what I call it. If you know the likes of I, Claudius, for instance, of Robert Graves, that's the idea. It wasn't Claudius who wrote that novel diary. It was obviously Robert Graves, but with the words of Claudius. It's created a little bit of confusion, because some people call it autobiography, others call it diary, others another's biography. Anyway, I love the confusion, I must say. The repercussion has been amazing. It's in all the papers, it was in all the news bulletins, and of course it was mostly about Real Madrid. Now that's the bit that I guess you're interested about, because what did he say? And what's been reported in some cases is not exactly what he says, or not in the tone that he said it, or not in the intention that he said it. He made very clear in both English and Spanish that he is very happy in London, that the project that he's dealing with at Spurs is amazing. When Real Madrid calls, you have to listen, because it's the dream of everybody. I'm saying this, is anybody's dream as a manager to be the manager of a Real Madrid, a Bayern Munich, or Manchester United, or a Manchester City now, or a Barcelona. So when you are a coach in that career, you of course have to listen. But he said it from the beginning. He said it in the first interview he gave. There's no bio clause. There is no deal quiet on the quiet. There's no secret pact with Daniel Levy to let him go. After that, everything else is not in his hands. Everything else is on Real Madrid's hands, who will have to talk to Daniel Levy and try to convince him, and good luck with that, to actually let him go. There wasn't much more than that. I think he's been criticized for not clearly saying, I'm at Spurs for such an amount of years. He's got a 5-year contract, he said. And when he was asked, where are you going next? For lunch, he said, of course. But to go to London to continue his project. It's not in his hands. And the main thing, if you get to know Pochettino, and if you read the book, for instance, you'll see that very clearly, things have to flow. You don't force anything. Football gives you what you deserve, and football gives it to you when football decides. It's not in your hands. This is important because before the event, I thought, do we do this? Because, of course, thinking from the author's point of view and the publisher's point of view, is like, let's do this. Of course, the attention is amazing. Hundreds of journalists, and some flying from England. The Argentinian journalists were there as well, because we decided to make the event as part of the Argentinian week, coinciding with the national side of Argentina being in Barcelona. And this is one of the main events that they've organized. So, as part of that, it was like, it shouldn't be cancelled, but I had to put the question. As a friend, as an author, there was mixed feelings, of course, and I thought, it's not really my decision. So I contacted Mauricio and the people that close to him, and I said, what do we do? And the answer was like, treat it all normal, We had this plan. Then there was lunch afterwards with a bunch of us and families and friends and assistants and so on. Let's do this. Is the media organized? Yes. Well, let's do that as well, and then let's go to lunch. And then he had to go for a wedding as well, so it was a busy day. So that's what we did. We just did the event as it was planned. We kept everything tight and tried to, as always, I am in both sides in one way. So I know as a journalist, you want, even though some of them weren't part of the list of journalists that wanted to talk to him before the Zidane news broke, we felt that he had to talk to all of them, and the only way to do it is at the end of the event. We just put him together in front of everybody with the radios, with the televisions, and there's a picture or two of that. I think I may put one on Twitter in a minute, or on Instagram, and you'll see the amount of people. But that's the best we could do, and I know that as a consequence we let one or two down, and I apologize for that. But couldn't fit everything in. I think he was quite generous with his time anyway. Generally, when somebody presents a co-written book, doesn't give so much time, but so he was there, didn't cancel it, and I think he said quite a lot. There's more stories in the media of what he said, or interpretations, I would say, of what he said, but I've just told you what his message was. He's happy at Spurs. He will continue at Spurs, and whatever happens. My personal take is that I feel that perhaps this is not the summer. I think that there is big things at stake here. Spurs going to a new stadium. I understand Real Madrid are in urge of a coach, but they will have to deal with Daniel Levy. I'm sure that a new contract in the eyes of Daniel Levy and the club means that there's a commitment in place, and most of you know what Mauricio Pochettino is like. So I think this perhaps is not the summer for it. But he will improve Spurs, continue improving Spurs, but there's a limit to what he can do. I'm sure everybody realizes that Spurs is still punching above the weight, and really it may just be a moment where it's like, I'm just giving everything I've got to Spurs, and Spurs should realize that as well, and then there'll be a time to say, okay, perhaps it's time for you to move on. I just feel that this is not the summer for it. But as everybody knows in football, who knows? Florentino Perez really wants him as the main candidate, will insist on it, and he'll have to deal with Daniel Levy. I think we all know the answer from Daniel Levy. But now we've got at least 3 versions of the book, Brave New World, in English, which there is an update of it, which I'm going to start writing today, and it should come out around the beginning of the season, dealing with a little bit of the season after. And there has been interesting twists to it. And there's a Spanish one, Un Mundo Nuevo. There's a Korean version as well, which I have to find out because Mauricio was asking me if he's doing well, and that's of course I expect it is. So that's that. I'm gonna tell you one more thing, because the Spanish press keeps mentioning Jurgen Klopp as a candidate to the Real Madrid managerial post. No chance. No chance. If you know Jurgen Klopp a little bit, having asked people around him, having asked the club, having asked everybody that I needed to ask, I got the answer that I expected. He's a man of his word. He has a plan with Liverpool. The signings are coming. There'll be other players that are arriving as well. The challenge, the idea is to get to a challenge for the title, and he is in the right place for it. There's a communion, there's a mutual love between him and the fans. He's in a 7-year plan. Football then decides for you as well, but the plan is same as it was at Mainz for 7 years, and 7 years for Dortmund. It'll be 7 years at Liverpool. That's the plan. We'll see what if it happens or not. So I think people will have to take off Klopp from that list, the same way that they have to take Lowe from that list, because he himself has said no chance. So my instinct is that well, they'll keep looking. I don't think they're gonna use anybody within the club. Nobody prepared for it just yet. Maybe as a number 2 to whoever comes in, and then preparing for a future arrival as number 1. And you know, there are names there that have been mentioned. I fancy, that's my choice, and I know that he's in the list, but not at the top of the list right now. Allegri, from a winning side where style is not decisive. He is conservative, if you like, or defensive because of what he has at Juventus, but not necessarily because he is that by nature. I think he knows how to deal with big names. He represents the club really well, and he's a winner. So there's a lot to go for, and he's debating himself if he wants to. Although I think his contract's until 2020 with Juventus, would he renew it? Should he stay? That's something that he's been debating with his entourage. So if Real Madrid comes, then he may change his mind. Anyway, enough of that. I just thought I want to tell you how it went yesterday, and I hope to talk to you soon. Cheers, bye.